Chinese President Jintao arrived in Seattle Tuesday, kicking off an ambitious 4-day tour of the United States. He'll meet Thursday with President Bush, covering a broad agenda from China's much criticized currency and other trade policies to its aggressive search for oil and its stance toward nuclear programs in Iran and North Korea. To help us sort out the major U.S.-China issues this morning is Jeffrey Bader, a senior fellow and director of the China Initiative at the Brookings Institution, who joins us from our Washington bureau. Good morning, Mr. Bader.
Good morning, Meg.
President Jintao is meeting first with business leaders in Washington state before heading to D.C. Is there some politics behind that decision?
Well, before President Hu came to the U.S., he sent his vice premier, Madam Wu Yi, on a buying mission around to a number of states in the U.S., buying about $16 billion worth of products in carefully chosen districts covering many congressional constituencies. So yes, the Chinese are trying to demonstrate that they are not only the world's largest country, but a major purchaser of American products.
President Jintao is meeting with Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates today. How will that square with China's controversial efforts to censor what the Chinese people can see on the Internet?
Well, the Chinese have been censoring all media for as long as the communists have been in power. So they've simply migrated their censorship techniques from radio, television, newspapers over to the Internet. That's not surprising, though. It's disturbing. American companies in the Internet domain, companies like Google and Microsoft, Cisco and Yahoo, have been moving into China, have done so recently to try to take advantage of that enormous market, and they've run into censorship problems. It's a tough issue, frankly, because China has something like 110 million Internet users. It's second only to the U.S. in numbers of Internet users, and will pass us soon. So it's a huge market, and not only are there the financial considerations, I think in terms of opening up discourse and opening up debate and discussion in China, even though the Internet is censored, the Internet is still a wonderful tool for broadening discussion of issues in China. For instance, one of the companies told me that they have something like 3.5 million blog sites, 3.5 million bloggers on their program, and that's 3.5 million more blogs than they had when I lived in China 20 years ago, when all you had was the People's Daily.
Right. President Bush says he would discuss Iran's nuclear activities with President Jintao this week and avoided ruling out nuclear retaliation if diplomatic efforts fail. Any thoughts on how President Jintao will react?
Well, the Chinese have long had a relationship, a fairly good relationship with Iran. They've seen Iran as a critical source of oil and natural gas to feed their enormous appetite for energy. They get something like maybe 10 or 11% of their oil from Iran. They not long ago signed a memorandum of agreement with the Iranians for tens of billions of dollars of investment and purchases in the oil and gas sector. So, on the one hand, China feels it needs Iran for energy. On the other hand, China does not wish to see a nuclear Iran for several reasons, the most important one of which is that China is going to be increasingly reliant on the Persian Gulf generally for its oil and natural gas. If the Persian Gulf becomes a more stable and dangerous place, that means China's source of what's expected to be 70% of its oil by the year 2030 will be more perilous. If Iran acquires nuclear weapons, one can expect Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, other countries in the region to think about nuclear options as well, and that can't make the region a safer place. So China does not want to see Iran go nuclear. They just don't want to be the ones who confront Iran. The trick for President Bush is to try to persuade the Chinese to go along with the other members of the permanent members of the Security Council in making credible threats to the Iranians about the kinds of sanctions that we would collectively impose upon Iran if they do not abandon their nuclear weapons program.
According to a senior Pentagon official, the U.S. and Japan are about to sign a milestone $2 billion co-development pact for an advanced sea-based missile designed to shoot down ballistic missiles. How do you think they will react to this agreement?
The Chinese have known for several years that the Japanese and the United States were cooperating on anti-ballistic missile systems. I think that although this is a new agreement, I think the Japanese signed up in principle for cooperation many years ago. So the Chinese have been watching the development of the U.S.-Japan security relationship over the last 5 to 10 years with some concern. They feel it's directed at them. So I think that they will view this as kind of a natural development in a robust U.S.-Japan military relationship that they already viewed with some concern.
Another important topic on the Bush administration's agenda is reforming Chinese currency. How do you think that will play out during the summit?
Well, I'd be very surprised to see the Chinese take any dramatic movement in the next few days. It would not be like the Chinese to succumb to outside pressure on the value of the currency. They first moved on the currency last July, where they revalued their currency upward by 2.1%. Since then, they've moved it up by about another 0.8%, so a total of just 2.9% in the last year. Clearly, the Bush administration and the Congress would like to see the Chinese move more rapidly, but I think the most we can expect is some words on the subject from President Hu, and perhaps some acceleration of their movement on currency in the coming months.
All right, Jeffrey Bader, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution in Washington. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meg.